This is an opportunity for the public to make comment on anything that they would like. And if we have no public comments, we'll go to the commission. Oh. Please state your name and address for
Mr. Chairman, Commission. My name is Jeff Muratori. I live at 3211 South Kaufman, Casper. I've been a resident of Casper for 53 years. I'm invested in Wyoming and Trumbull County. I spoke with the chairman today on the phone briefly. I've come to find out that the commission donated $1,000 to the American Lands Council. And it rather upsets me that you're using our tax money to promote a representative from Utah in his quest to get all federal lands transferred to the state. Now, we can have a discussion about the merits of state lands versus federal lands, and I'd be more than willing to speak with any of you about this. But I just want to share with you my disappointment that the commission gave him the money, and you are now what is considered a bronze member of the American Lands Council. Congratulations. I don't want to see this happen again. As a voting member of the community, a sportsman, a recreationist, a father, a grandfather, because I dealt on a personal and a specific level with the state. I've attended BLM meetings on travel management. I've gone to Forest Service meetings. I know what it is to deal with the federal government and the state government when it comes to land issues. And the transfer of lands from the federal government to the state, while it may be bountiful in money, is not bountiful for the people of the state of Wyoming. That's my opinion. But so anyway, before you see this in the newspaper, I just wanted to come before the commission and let you know how I felt about this.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Muratori?
I just have a comment. From Mr. Muratori, I mean, it's significant in your comments that you said you're invested in the community. I think that's the way all are. And what your comment is that you've been here for 53 years, right?
Yes.
So you know Wyoming, right?
Yes.
Right? You've been here a long time?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's my point. I believe that Wyoming lands should be managed by people that live in Wyoming. Okay? That's why I believe that the state knows best how to manage Wyoming lands versus the federal government. Right? Somebody who lives here, in my opinion, has much more land management acumen than somebody that works in an office in Washington, D.C.
And how much of a land user are you, Commissioner Keating?
Not quite a bit.
What do you do on the public lands of Wyoming?
Well, public lands, the VOR, I spend a lot of time at the lake, with my family. I take hikes along the trails, at times, and I've been in Casper all my life.
Okay, well, obviously you don't seem to know some of the differences between state land and BLM land. Can I enlighten you? On state land, you're not allowed to camp overnight. On state land, if it's cultivated, you're not allowed to enter that land to hunt. You can't have a campfire on state land. You can't even take your barbecue grill out on Hat 6 Road and have a picnic with your family on state land. Now, there's a difference. There's a difference between how state lands are managed and federal lands are managed. Trust lands are managed for the good of the trust, for money. Sportsmen, recreation, the people are on the bottom of that list. So, would I like the state to manage our lands? Yes, if the state managed our lands for the people, not for the money. Because I know the state would probably make more money, but let's not kid ourselves here. The state of Wyoming couldn't afford to take over these federal lands right now anyway. The governor herself admitted it was probably illegal. And what's going on in Cheyenne is a $75,000 funding of a study to manage, not take over ownership of federal lands. That's the difference. American Land Council is strictly after taking over the federal lands. And I might add, Ken Ivory is now under investigation for fraud. Basically, your $1,000 just funded him. That's what that was all about. So, as you can see, it does upset me, but I am always open for conversation. And the conversation on the state of Wyoming managing some federal lands is one we should probably have. The ownership, another story. So, I would just hope that this commission would think twice before it gives money again to a group like the American Lands Council, which is basically Ken Ivory. That's all it is. I've heard his speech. I've seen his snake oil. I've seen it. I've been there. I talked to him. He would not discuss with me when I challenged him. When he told me that we weren't harvesting timber on our federal lands, I told him, that's funny, because when I had a moose permit down in the snows last year, they had signs up on the roads that we had to get out of the way of the logging trucks. And he was talking about how we don't cut timber on the forest. Well, that's just not true. So, again, it just disheartens me to see that the commission approved that money to the American Lands Council. Now, if it was to the state of Wyoming to look into a study on managing, that's a different story. So there's a distinct difference between the transfer of lands and the managing of those lands. And I guess that's my biggest concern.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Any other public comments? If not, commissioner comments. Commissioner Hendry.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I guess I've got one. I guess I would answer the paying the $1,000 to Ivory. In Wyoming, those lands are not very well managed because they're managed out of Washington. The logging you referred to brought them kicking and screaming to the table, and they're finally logged within about 10 years. And that's the only logging going on across the West. They're taking those beetle kills out of there. And that is management of the public land. And they finally got them to do it. I think we can manage those lands a lot better. I'll tell you, I don't think they would be like school trust land. I think that they would have to be a different category of state land. And they would still have the access. They would still have hunting and fishing just like they do now, which most people are concerned with. But we can manage them better here. And it's not going to be me. It's not going to be anybody on this commission. Now, we might be appointed to some board that would help do it. But it would be the state of Wyoming that was in charge of it. So, yeah, I like the idea. I really do. In any other state, the other side of the Mississippi, those lands were all given to the state when they became a state. In Wyoming, we didn't get that same luxury. I'll tell you, those lands are not the same as deeded lands out there. I ranch. I use public land. I enhance public land. I develop springs, develop water, and I have to drag the BLM kicking and screaming into the table to do it. Sometimes they won't let me develop the land that would actually help them and the wildlife and livestock. So management, I think, would be better. I've had a lifetime. I'm a third generation user of public land. I know it very well. There was a lot of that country in the 30s that was homesteaded, but it was so bad that people couldn't make a living. They couldn't even prove up on it, and it reverted back to the government. That's the kind of land you're talking about. It's dry. The most of the water is owned by deeded land. Just pure management would be better in the state's hand. I'm going to tell you that I am not foreclosing up that land. It's still going to have hunting and fishing, but it's also going to have mineral exploration. And the state of Wyoming has an office right down here, the Oil and Gas Commission. And they couldn't go out there without going through the proper permitting process. But permitting might take a year, where now it takes 4 or 5 years. So we can get the America's developing our resources, we can do it better understanding it. And that's the way I would look at it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lawson? No. Okay. Commissioner Slaughter?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Key? Yes, sir. And, you know, there are a lot of facets to the public lands discussion, and that's the stage that the state is in right now. If the state should get these lands back, okay, then what? And that is an ongoing conversation. So there's a lot to be explored there. We don't know where that's going to go. Will it look more like the federal lands? That's part of the discussion. We do know that we are in a mineral extractive state, and that is the future of this state, whether we like it or not. Yes, we want to diversify our economy, but we're still in the minerals extractive state. There's an identified 150 trillion, that's with a T, dollars worth of extractable minerals identified underneath public lands in the West.
And that's what they know about the current technology.
Right, exactly. So, you know, there's a lot of value there that stands to be held up, locked up, and kept from our own children and our grandchildren, and that economic development that goes along with it, that has been the lifeblood of this state for well over 100 years. So with that,
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Henry?
got one more thought to leave you with. I'll tell you, America, we have the energy out there, whether it's coal or oil and gas or natural gas. Think about today in this United States. When you go on a trip, you plug 3 devices into the wall. You got probably a laptop, you got a cell phone, cameras now you plug in and charge up. We are absolutely addicted to energy in this country. And somehow we've got to figure out a way to produce it.
Okay, thank you. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.